Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Monday night edition of the People Show. I'm Mark Wallace, your host and facilitator of this Monday night People Show. And of course, this week is Monroe Monday. Every other week, Monroe Anderson, who is a retired journalist, and he's also the former press secretary for the late Mayor Eugene Sawyer of the city of Chicago, and who filled in for the remainder of Harold Washington's term when he met his untimely demise. And so Monroe's going to be with me tonight. We have some great guests coming on for you tonight. There's a lot that's going on in the news. We want to talk about the attack on the United States on Iran. We're going to have our guest who's going to be joining us in just a few minutes by the name of Reed Rasner, who is a billionaire investor, very wealthy man, who is also a Republican. He's going to be talking about his take and giving us his take on the United States attack on Iran, on their nuclear program. And we also want to find out where he is on this bill that is being debated and discussed now in the Senate, what seems to be hanging on a real slim margin and a thread, because it is going to do a lot of harm to entitlements of Medicaid and Medicare and the SNAPS program. They're going to be taking billions of dollars from those persons who need those resources and giving them to people who really don't need them, which some of the economists and certainly some of those in the independent congressional budget office has said that this is going to be upwards of somewhere or $350,000 in a tax cut for people who really don't need it. So want to find out where his take is on that. So we're going to be talking with him in just a few minutes. And then coming up a little bit later on in the program, we're going to be talking with prominent African-American attorney Jim Montgomery. All of us here in Chicago know Jim Montgomery served as corporation counsel during the Harold Washington term. He's been a prominent attorney representing personal injury cases as well as defending people at the federal level. And so he is going to be our guest coming up a little bit later on. We're going to be finding out what his take is on the nomination of Emil Beauvais under that controversy. He is an official in the Department of Justice, and there was a whistleblower who claims and testified that Emil Beauvais was encouraging members of the Justice Department to F federal court rulings. Well, they may have to end up doing that. And of course, he went under a grueling questioning by the Senate Judiciary Committee this past week. Find out what his thoughts is on that and get his thoughts on what the Supreme Court has ruled in a 6-3 ruling, giving enormous powers to the president and saying that lower court judges cannot impose restraints or national injunctions against executive rules or the executor. So we're going to find out what his take is on that and explain that a little bit more coming up on the program. But right now I want to bring on my every other week guest co-host, who is always with me. As I said to you, every other week he's here on the People Show, and it is Monroe Anderson, and we call this Monroe Monday. So this is a Monroe Monday. So I'm going to bring on my guest co-host, Monroe Anderson. Hey, Monroe, welcome. How you doing?
Hey, Mark, how's it going?
Everything is going well. How you doing?
As soon as we rein in your president, I'll be doing all right.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. How do you suppose that we will be able to rein in the president? I just watched an interview with the DNC chair on MSNBC. How do you propose that we will be able to rein in a president that seems to have, if not all of the Republicans, at least those that are staying or are vying to stay or wanting to stay, that he seems to have complete control over, let's say, 98% of them, 99% of them.
Well, the terrorists are here. They haven't felt them yet, but they're about to feel them. And when they feel them and realize how they're getting the short shaft on it, they're going to let those Republicans who are afraid of Trump become afraid of them. And as that happens, there will be defectors. And that's very soon. Maybe by the time the big, beautiful bill is done.
So what you're really saying is that there has to be public outcry from the voters to their senators, their congressmen. Speaking of the Republicans, there has to be a mass outcry from the voters saying to their representatives that they don't want this and they reject it, and they want for them to reject it.
Well, not so much they don't want to be screwed. That's basically what it boils down to. Trump promises them one thing and gives them something altogether different, and then lies about it and tells them that he gave them what he told them he was going to give them, which is not true. So basically, there are two things that's going to make everything turn around. The terrorists are one, and then the whole scaling back of Medicare and Medicaid. Those are two things that are critical to Republicans as well as Democrats. And
well, let's talk about that. When they talk about scaling back Medicaid and Medicare, what does that really mean? Who would be the people, or who would be the victims of that scale back? Does that mean that people who have insurance through Medicare and Medicaid are going to just lose their insurance?
Some, yeah. In fact, some incredible amount.
Yeah, I think that the number here in Illinois is upwards of 330,000 people would end up being victims, losing their Medicare and Medicaid, which is going to put that burden on the state.
Yes,
which
multiplied by 50 times.
Well, and then of course we are one of those states that have budget, budget requirements by law that we have to meet a budget.
Yeah, right.
Well, we already have constraints on trying to meet the budget, and
right. So
this is going to make that even worse.
What happens is when the money is cut back, then they're going to find ways. The way it's set up, they've set it up. The Republicans have set it up. It's not going to be one of these just letters in the mail. It's not going to be like Musk did it when he cut all those jobs, where he just chop. The way they're setting it up, if and assuming when the big beautiful bill passes, what's going to happen is there are going to be more rules for you to stay on Medicare or Medicaid. There's going to be a lot more paperwork. There's going to be ways of doing it where you will lose your coverage because you broke some new rule that they set up that's designed to either make you quit or kick you off.
So in other words, almost make it impossible for somebody not to violate one of the rules.
Well, not some people would be okay, but some people aren't as good with paperwork as others. Some won't know that the rules have changed, so it's like instead of the deadline being on a Wednesday, it's now on a Monday.
Okay, what about those persons? We have people who unfortunately have had mental declines, like people who are Alzheimer's patients or
Right,
people with
right,
dementia. They,
right,
they, they don't have any wherewithal of being able to comply with those rules.
right. And they will be, scientifically speaking, screwed.
There's no voice for them. There's no voice for them, which the voice is
Well,
supposed to be.
right. Well,
Um,
this is why the Democrats are fighting it right now, and why um, a bunch of Republicans are nervous and scared about it because they know it's going to be um, a bloodbath next year in the midterm.
if the Republicans are so afraid of it, which
Yeah,
means that they know that there are provisions in this bill that are bad.
right.
Probably there are some provisions within this bill that are good, but there are gross provisions that hurt people who need the help the most. And so, why wouldn't Republicans just vote their conscience to do the right thing and say to the president, I can't support this bill?
Because he will primary them.
Okay, well,
Do.
if you get primaried because you're doing what is the right thing for the constituents and the right thing for the country as a whole, then that's what it is. Then you get out in your districts and you say, hey, I stood up for you so that you did not get screwed.
And
That's what I did.
and this person, if these people, you're a Republican, and you stand up in your district and you say that, and Donald Trump is going to say that you are not a real Republican, that you are a Democrat in disguise, that you are against America, and he's going to run primary. He's going to run somebody against you. And whoever Donald Trump runs will beat you. There were 10 Republicans who voted for Trump's impeachment. Only 2 are left in the Congress.
No, I get it. I get it. But do you so either you are an elected representative to represent the best interest for your constituent and for the country, not for your political protection. So if what you're telling me is that if people are considering their political protection more important than doing what is right by the people, we got a real problem. We have a worse problem.
We have a worse problem. We have. Because those people like that. Those are good jobs, if that's what you want to do. And those people like their jobs, and so they will do anything to
No,
keep
they
them.
like the benefits of the job. They don't really like, they don't like doing the job because the job is making sure that you're making the best
Well,
decision.
they're not doing their job. They're doing Trump's job.
Right.
They're not doing that.
There was a Democrat that lost his seat in Texas, I believe it was. I can't remember what his name was, but he voted for something that was in the best interest of the constituents and lost his job. And he said, if I have to lose my job or lose an election because I did the right thing, then that is a price worth paying to do the right thing.
Yeah, yeah. So he's not around. He's not doing anything now. I mean, he's doing something, but he's not doing anything in Congress.
Okay,
And
so then
so,
what you're helping me to understand is that
yeah,
those people that will save their job will put the country and their constituents at risk and at peril. That's basically what the trade-off is.
yes, yes.
Okay.
And they're afraid. The, the Republicans have been telling all these lies all these decades. And now that the rubber has hit the road, we're finding out that they really aren't Christians as they claim to be. They really aren't family as they claim to be. All these things that they built up as that they were supposed to represent, they do not. They are not. And they're being exposed. And so next year, November, a lot of them are going to be out of work anyway, particularly in the House, hopefully in the Senate too.
All right, folks, listen, we were supposed to have our guest. I'm not sure what happened, but it was confirmed that Reed Reisner was going to be on with us at 7:05. It is now 7:16, and we still have not seen from them. I'll check my phone to see if there's any text message from his PR people to find out what took place. Who knows? I don't have any messages here to this point. So, but continuing that conversation, Monroe is I'm a registered Democrat. I'm a Democrat because I believe in the values of the Democratic philosophy, going back to Franklin Delano Roosevelt, coming up all the way to all of the protections and the benefits that we have gained over the years. You know, black people were not necessarily included in those, but later on, we became beneficiaries of those policies. But over the last 25, 30, 35 years, the Democrats have gotten stale. They've gotten out of touch. They've become more corporatist in many respects, just like the Republicans, which is why Democrats are losing on a local levels, on state levels, and on a national levels. How do we infiltrate the Democratic Party to get the Democratic Party to function the way that it is supposed to function?
No, that's part of why the Democrats have lost. Um, a lot of it has to do with the Republicans planning ahead. I mean, all this stuff that is happening now, Republicans, rich Republicans like the Koch brothers, have been planning for decades, at least 20 years, 30, in some instances 30 years, where they started local. They focused locally
Yes,
on and they paid for those wins locally.
right.
And in time, Democrats um, stopped campaigning and putting up good uh, people to run in red states. They just gave up. They didn't campaign. They didn't try and win in red states. And as a result, the Republicans formed a network, and they also planned to made plans to get the over the take over the Supreme Court, make it into a conservative court, and will vote in their favor. But they've been working on this uh, for election after election after election after election, and so we are here. And in the meantime, the Republicans have been doing anything and everything to win, and the Democrats have been Mr. and Mrs. Nice Guys.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's so much that the Democrats haven't done things as the Republicans did a lot more things in a lot more underhanded ways.
Well, but I think the Democrats, in fairness, the Democrats have known this. They've known what the Republicans have been doing. Why haven't the Democratic Party been able to strategize to push back against the American Legislative Exchange Commission and these types of groups? They've known this for 25, 30 years at least, and they still have not come up with a strategy to fight back.
Well, there's this saying, Democrats fall in love, Republicans fall in line. And so with the Democrats, I mean, most Democratic leaders have an idea of how they think things should be, and the Democratic voter is looking for just the right candidate to fall in love with, to get excited about. And this is how we got Harold Washington in Chicago, for example. The Republicans fall in line. They play the party line. They do what the party does, and therein lies the difference right now.
Well, when you say the Democrats fall in love, what are they falling in love with?
It depends. If they don't fall in love with anybody, they stay home. They want to be in love. It's like if you're a young person in your 20s, you might not be out there just falling in love with anybody that comes along. You're looking for love at first sight or something. You have this whole romanticized version of the way things should be. And for example, with young people right now, they want somebody who excites them. They want somebody who is fighting the Republicans. Mamani, I don't know, the guy who won New York City.
Oh, Mahmoud Mamdani in New York City.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he has the young Democrats excited. They're in love with him. And of course, his critics and the Republicans are saying he's a socialist and he's horrible and all this. But they're excited with him, as they were with Barack Obama 20 years ago. He had a group of Democrats in love with him.
Right.
Biden didn't get the love. He should have. He did a lot of good things, but he didn't get the love. Trump
you're talking about Biden did not get the love from the party, right? Biden didn't get the love from the party, and or the vote. Yeah, but this all came down because of the party. That what the party allowed to happen. The party became fractionized itself. It imploded, where you had a man who has accomplished some of the greatest legislative accomplishments in most of our lifetime that will benefit the masses of people, poor people and working class people over decades to come, which are being certainly being derailed. But then you have the counter of a Donald Trump. So you had the Democrats cannibalizing the person who made great legislative accomplishment. They literally cannibalized them, while the Republicans idolized and put on a halo a guy who is a thug, a convicted criminal, and every other negative adjective that you could name. They put him on a pedestal as though he was an angel. This is the difference that I see between my party and their party, is that while the Democrats should have been wrapping their arms around Joe Biden to make sure that Joe Biden got the nomination and got reelected. And if he couldn't serve, that's why you have a vice president. I just, um, I think that there's
Well,
something.
I think the Democrats didn't vote against Biden. They didn't vote. They stayed home. If the amount of Democrats that voted for Biden in 2020 had turned out, we wouldn't be suffering with the President Trump right now.
Well, but because you had more of a unified promotion of the Democratic candidate at the time. When you have Democrats infighting,
right?
When you have Democrats infighting, you are discouraging the voters to even participate because they're saying, well, listen, they can't even get along at the top. Why should I go participate? And then you have people like Cornel West, who goes out and takes on the mantra that he took on because he's upset with some policy. Okay, you're upset with some policy. Then you get with the party. You get in the room and you discuss the things that you're concerned about. But you get out there and you promote the party. Make sure that the Democrats win so that you can be in the room, and then you can argue and debate the issues of those things that you are, that you disagree with. Not go out and be a spoiler, which allowed for us, to have what we have now. That was, in my view, a contribution to what we have now.
Yeah, it had some impact. I don't know. I don't know if it was. I don't know how major Cornell was, but every little bit hurt.
It didn't need to be major. They just needed a little bit, and they got the little bits that mounted up to what they needed in order for them to win and for the entire country to lose. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is that it doesn't have to be major. It can just be just enough to give the other side that victory. That's all I'm saying is that the ideology of the Democratic Party, because it's such a big party and it's a wide tent and there's so many variants, is just a bunch of nonsense to me. You have one team, and you have to have one plan if you are going to win. You can't go on a football field or a basketball court or a baseball court and say, because I like this plan over here and I like this plan over here, and expect for the team to win. You can't function that way. There's no way that you're going to win that way. And it's an old ideology, and it's stale and completely broken, and it's a failed way for the Democrats to continue to move forward.
Well, they've moved beyond that now, and I don't think we should re-litigate the past. I think we need to live in the future, the present, right now, and look towards the future, which the Democrats are doing. I mean, they're fighting the big, beautiful, ugly bill right now. I mean, and I do mean right now, because the Republicans are trying to get it through. It's going to cut Medicaid for everybody. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a wealth transformation, a reverse Robin Hood, where the Republicans are going to take money from the poor and the middle class and give it to the rich. And the Democrats are yelling this from the top of the bell tower. They're like Paul Revere. They're racing through the country saying the terrorists are coming. Terrorists are here. The rich are about to get richer, and the rest of us are going to get less rich. We're going to get poorer. And they're spreading the word. But Trump has his cult, and he will lie about that. He will tell if it's necessary. He will go on Truth Social or whatever his website is tomorrow and say there's a blizzard coming to Chicago on 4th of July. And a lot of those people will go bring out their winter coats and get ready for it.
Well,
Anybody like that right now.
Yeah, I think we have to and I'm not trying to litigate the past, but you certainly have to look at what mistakes that you've made in the past that I currently see them making today. Yes, they have to stand up and fight against what is going forward, but guess what? They're not in the majority. They're not in the majority. If they don't get
well, they're not in the elected majority. Yeah,
they're in the elected majority, but if they don't get the necessary support or defectors from the Republicans, this bill is going to pass.
Yeah. Well, oh, yeah. Right. No, and it probably will. But I mean, but the battle is not over yet. The Republicans may chicken out and not defeat this bill. But then it is from the Senate, and it's going to be different from what the House sent over. So the House is going to have to re-examine it and rework it. And so the Democrats will have another chance at exposing how bad this bill is. And if they do succeed in passing it, there are going to be so many people and poor people, working class people, who are going to suffer. That it's going to be a bloodbath in November next year. But
listen, we got about a minute left. And I just want to, when you talked about working class people and poor people, you even have Democrats. The Democrats are afraid to use the word poor. They won't even say how bad this is for poor people. They won't even say it.
Well, that's because LBJ had a war on poverty. And then when Reagan got in office, he started a war on the poor. And the poor lost that war. And so who even Democrats are afraid to talk about the poor now. Well, there's some Democrats who aren't. But
they don't understand it because actually the poor in this country represents about 40% of the total electorate, and you're not speaking to those people.
I don't think it's that large.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it is. They just don't vote.
Yeah,
they don't vote. Well, and they don't vote because there's nobody talking to them. Listen, I think I think that the Democrats have to have a radical shift in their approach to dealing with the issues that impacts the masses. If they continue down this road of trying to put their finger in the air and see which way the wind is blowing, we're gonna continue to lose, and we're gonna continue to have Trumplicans destroying.
Yeah, well, I don't subscribe to that fear so much. I mean, Trump won by 1.2% or something. I mean, it was a very close race because our people didn't come to vote. But it's
our people. Wait a minute. Now I'm going to push back a little bit. Our people voted. Our people voted.
No,
our people voted. 53% of white women decided that this was better. 39% of Hispanic men thought this was better.
Right. Yeah, that was a percentage. But white women, 83%
of black men voted for Kamala Harris.
voted Republican since LBJ. White women. I mean, this is what white women do. So fewer of them voted for Trump. Some of them voted for Kamala, but not enough.
Well, he got 53% of the vote this time. He got 52% of their vote in 2016. 53% of white women voted for him this time around. 52% of white women voted for him in 2016. This time he got 39% of Hispanic men that voted for him. Our people voted. 82% of black men voted, or 83.
When I say our people, I'm talking about Democrats, not blacks. Although more black men voted for Trump this time than they have in the past.
Right. All right. Listen, we're gonna have to switch because we'll continue this conversation when we come back. But we have a prominent African American attorney who has represented people at the federal level, who has been a litigator, and he's represented people on personal injury. Somebody who I have admired from afar. Someone who I've had the privilege of having on my program, and he is with us, and that is attorney Jim Montgomery. Attorney Montgomery, welcome to the program. How are you?
Thank you very much. Doing well. Thank you. And you?
Hey, Jim, how's it going?
All is well. Thank you. I'm in sunny Florida right now, so the weather is great.
Oh, well, you're down there in my neck of the wood. What part of Florida are you in?
In Naples.
You're in Naples. I'm from Miami.
Oh, okay. You're on the other side of the. I'm on the American Gulf side.
Yes. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, listen, I'm sure that you have been paying attention to, and I wanted to get your take on a couple of things. There is the Department of Justice, an official by the name of Emil Bove, who is Trump's nominee for the federal bench. And there was a whistleblower who supported Trump and defended Trump, who came out and said that Emil Bove instructed in a March meeting that they had, instructed them that they were to violate federal court orders that ruled against the Trump administration. What is your take on this nomination?
Well, I think that is typical of the quality of the individuals that the president has put in his cabinet, many of whom were unqualified as well as opinionated to the extent that you would expect them not to be able to be objective and helpful in terms of the particular departments that they were appointed to. Like Kennedy, for instance, is a guy who was really not qualified with the opinions that he's expressed throughout his adult life. The bottom line here was that Bove was his lawyer. And Bove was his lawyer, I guess, in the New York case, and he lost that case. And this is his reward. He's rewarded by being a deputy associate head of the Justice Department. And I think that when you look at what he allegedly did, and I think the allegedly is not exactly accurate, because the kid who apparently blew the whistle on him was fired by the Justice Department after having an excellent record over 10 years before this event occurred. And because he acknowledged openly that the Justice Department had made a mistake in sending this young man to prison without any due process, then all of a sudden he is persona non grata. But I think that Beauvais, I must tell you, I listened to a part of the Senate hearings when Booker, is it Booker, Senator Booker?
Senator Cory Booker, Senator Cory Booker, and Adam Schiff.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, what I'd like to do is I'd like to play a little bit of Adam Schiff's opening, and then I'd like to get your comments on it. This is Adam Schiff in his questioning.
Mr. Beauvais, I want to turn to the meeting that Mr. Ruvaney, the whistleblower, has written an extensive complaint about. The hearing started with the chairman reading a social media post by the Deputy Attorney General Blanche, who is present today but not under oath, nor is that social media post under oath. So let me ask you, since you are under oath, in the complaint it says, Beauvais stated that DOJ would need to consider telling the courts, fuck you, and ignoring any such court order. Did you say anything of that kind in the meeting?
Senator, I have no recollection of saying anything of that kind. To the extent I
Wouldn't you recall, Mr. Beauvais, if you said or suggested during a meeting with Justice Department lawyers that maybe they should consider telling the court, fuck you? It seems to me that would be something you'd remember, unless that's the kind of thing you say frequently.
Well, I've certainly said things encouraging litigators at the department to fight hard for valid positions that we have to take in defense of our clients.
And have you frequently suggested that they say fuck you and ignore court orders? Is that also something you frequently do, such you might not remember doing it on this occasion?
No, and as I explained, I have never directed.
So did you or did you not make those comments during that meeting?
Which comments, Senator?
You really need me to repeat it? Did you suggest, as Mr. Ruvaney wrote, that DOJ would need to consider telling the courts, fuck you, and ignore any such court order?
I did not suggest that there would be any need to consider ignoring court orders. At the point of that meeting, there were no court orders.
What's your take on his response and his answer to that question?
It sounds like a man who is full of guilt. If you don't remember whether you said that, you got a problem. And it's pretty clear that, I just don't understand how people could even consider making that man a circuit judge reviewing the most important cases that come before the federal court. And with not only that, according to information that Booker brought out, this man 2 years earlier in 2018 had a slew of people making complaints against him because of his illegal and unethical conduct as a lawyer. And of course, he didn't remember that and denied that as well. And unfortunately, because of the loyalty that these sitting United States senators have to Mr. Trump, the likelihood is that they are going to move him over to that Third Circuit Court of Appeals job, because they're going to reward him for his chicanery and his loyalty.
Yeah, and so and that's a job for life for him.
Yeah, that's a lifetime job, and it's a job that he can pay the president back when the appropriate cases come there, as the Supreme Court apparently is doing now.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you say that what does this do to the judiciary? What impact is this going to have on our judiciary and the rule of law?
Well, it is always said from the days we were in law school that respect for law is what makes America work. And if you lose respect for law and the courts that administer the law, then we have a bad situation in this country where you have chaos. So my feeling is that people who get away with the kind of stuff that Trump is getting away with, that Beauvais is apparently about to get away with, that but for some egregious conduct on the part of the first nominee for the Justice Department, forget his name, they didn't put him through, but everybody else they've approved. They've approved them no matter what. So I'm afraid that we don't have what America needs, and that is checks and balances in this country. You don't have the judiciary anymore acting as a checks and balance on the legislative and the executive. You don't have the executive acting as a check and balance on the legislation. You don't have the legislature making a check on the president. The president is all powerful in every branch of government. And with that, we're in deep trouble.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right.
So we can almost say is we have a de facto king.
Yes, that's what the Supreme Court has called him. The king can do no wrong. He can commit a crime as long as it's in the official course of his duties and not be punished for it.
Yeah, and he gets to define what's official duties for himself.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. That's he's got good lawyers, as he says. He's not a lawyer, but he's got a bunch of them who can assist him.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Jim, I'm curious if, and this is a long shot-ish, but if we take back Democrats, take back the House and the Senate next year, we're definitely going to get the House, but if we get the Senate also, will we be able to stifle Trump to any extent, or does he have too many ways to get out of jail free?
Well, I think that all he'll have left then is not the legislative backup. The legislature is provides the juice and the gasoline for the engine to run. So yeah. we would be able to certainly stop him in his tracks in many places. On the other hand, he'll have a limited area, whereas the head of administrator of the government, he's going to have some degree of freedom and a Supreme Court to back him up.
So even if we win next year, we still got challenges ahead.
Yeah, but we have got to do, the Democratic Party has got to do something to take away the unanimous Republican ownership of the legislature. That's killing us.
Yeah.
And what amazes me is and I shouldn't say it, I've seen it all my life, and so have you. But for this man to sit down and openly and notoriously target Black people and our rights without any objection by anybody, I mean, he's canceling everything that looks like diversity or civil rights.
Yeah, no, he is a white supremacist without the hood. He don't even bother to wear a hood to hide it. I mean, he's just out there now.
Yeah, you're right. There's no question about that.
Well, this news just broke just before we came on the air. Monroe sent me the article about they have established this national database where the administration now has all of our information that they can go in and to check to see whether or not a registered voter is a citizen, to check our citizenship. Now, this is supposed to be for those people who have become naturalized, but they basically have all of our information to do with what they will.
Yeah, well, that's a part of that whole business of allowing that South African gentleman and his group to come in and get access to the most confidential information in the government with the Internal Revenue Service, the Social Security Administration, and across the board. They have it all.
Right, and they're in there now. He's gone, but his people are still there.
Yeah, they're still doing. And there's nobody, And I heard you talking about the Democratic Party. Uh, I wonder where they are. you know, there's so much garbage going on in the Republican side in this current 2 months or 100 days or whatever it is that we ought to be shouting it from the rooftops. We should be out there telling people and explaining to people who don't read newspapers what's going on.
Right.
Because right now, I don't think that people get aroused until they have the information. And if people have the information that you and I have, because we read, we listen to news, um, you'd be outraged. But
I would be thinking that the Democrats would be in every tentacle of red states, red districts, every tentacle, widespread, day in and day out, telling them very simply, this is what they are doing to you. This is going to happen to you.
Yeah, and some of the poor people who are white and whose ox is getting gored in this current bill that they're trying to put together. I mean, they're giving him a chance to see if his lies about things going to get better or going to. They're not even panicked yet, but they're going to get killed, and
Right.
there are more of them than there are of us. But again, the Democratic Party, they need to be out there doing something and letting people know what's happening.
Let me ask you. I'm going to bring something a little closer to home. I want to get your take on it. We have a new state's attorney here, Eileen O'Neill Burke, here in Cook County. Eileen O'Neill Burke, when she got elected, she did two things. One, she dismissed the charges on a police officer who was clearly violating someone's, civil rights, right in front of a camera. That charges were brought upon him under her predecessor, under Kim Foxx. She dismissed those charges, was the first act that she did after she was sworn in. The second thing that she did was she decided that she was going to train police officers as a pilot program in two of the blackest districts, 5 and 7, which are Inglewood and Roseland. Train police officers that they would actually be able to bypass the felony review, and police officers would be able to arrest, produce evidence, and charge people of felony gun offenses without oversight from the state's attorney. What's your thought about that? And is that legal, or is that a violation of the state statute?
Well, of course, the state's attorney has the prosecutorial discretion to charge or not charge a person based upon whatever that state's attorney's judgment is. That's a judgment that's been placed in the hands of an elected official that the public has something to say about. It hasn't been put in the hands of police officers. We talk every day to police officers who take depositions from them in those cases, and we find them, many of them are talking over the phone during the course of the day. How many niggas did you get today? I mean, this is the kind of person that she's talking about, giving the discretion to determine whether to charge somebody with a felony offense and wreck their lives from this point forward. So that's what I think of it. Not very much.
Yeah. In 1978, I was working for the Tribune, and I covered 26 in California for a few months. I couldn't take it anymore. There's this whole us versus them mentality, where you had these white prosecutors and all these young black men that they were marching forward, and the attitude was that way at 26 California back then, and it hasn't changed.
Yeah, it's not changing. I think that our most recent state's attorney, she changed the whole uh, atmosphere from the top, but still the people at the bottom were doing what the people at the bottom do.
Right.
See a man walk into the courtroom, if he's got a dark complexion, there's one idea of who he is, and if they've got a different complexion, there's another idea, and they treat them differently.
Right.
Um, that's one of the things that motivated me as a young lawyer, and that was out of the. I had, like most of us, been educated in the public school system and miseducated, I would say, and didn't know who the hell I was and who the hell black people were, as far as that's concerned. And when I learned that all this nonsense they taught us in school was just bullshit, you know, and I just got pissed off and started fighting the system. So there was enough out there for you to fight when I came into the law business. And most of it happened at that 26 in California, where I started cutting my teeth. And justice system was one-sided. You had every judge on the bench was anti-defendant. Who were the defendants? Us.
Yeah.
Black judges in those days who had been approved by the Democratic Party were also anti-defendant because they'd been approved.
Right. You didn't get.
I got more ticked off at them than I did some of the white races. But things have changed for the better, I can say, in the last 30, 40, 50 years. But boy, they're still bad. We're still the low man on the totem pole.
Yeah, no, Kim tried valiantly to change the system around. Mm-hmm. And they hated on her big time for that.
Of course. Absolutely.
Well, because I think this political ideology about we got to get tough on crime. We got to be tough on crime, which really means you got to be tough on black people. Right. But the position of the prosecutor is to prosecute crime. The prosecutor, this ideology that somehow the prosecutor has some impact on lowering crime and making the city and the county safer, it's a myth. It's a myth, and to bring prosecutors in to say that we're going to lock people up and that sort of thing. I thought that their job was to seek justice and to really prosecute, to prosecute offenders who were, people who were doing some really heinous things in our city and in our county. But this ideology of just lock them up so that you could win an election, but you could wreck people's lives, and that you needed to show some meanness and nastiness about it in order to be qualified for a position.
Right. That's the way it is, unfortunately.
Yeah, when I was at Channel 2, I went out on a story with the camera crew one time because they wanted to have me become a reporter instead of management. So I went out on this story, and they had this black guy who had done a crime, and the police timed it where he'd do his perp walk in time for the evening news. The camera crew had to wait there until that time, and they would bring him out. And that's why on TV you see black criminals, all of them, those have been arrested, and very seldom white. You see it sometimes, but as a general rule, the whole system we are the face of crime. As far as
I'm reading a book by, I don't know the lady's name, basically she talks. It's called The Original Sin, and I recommend it.
Yes.
She basically says that the education system is a product of, the original sin, which was slavery, and how the schools now act as the maintainer of that system, so that there is no basic change from the notion of judging people on the basis of how they look, or versus looking at who they are, and educating people, disciplining black kids differently from you do whites, because that's what you do. You have to keep slaves in line, so we're still treating them like slaves. And it's a as I read some of this stuff, it's tragic, but it's important. I think that we get an understanding of that, because I don't know about you guys, but I was 40 years old before I had a fully good idea of what I was as a human being, and where I had come from, and that it wasn't as negative as I had always thought it was.
Yeah.
Well, we're beneficiaries of the groundwork that people like yourself and our parents have done. So we were we had the benefit of being able to find that out. But it's not till you're about 40 or 45 till your marbles are functioning right, even though you might have some.
That shouldn't feel too bad.
Yeah, it's just so the antenna is set right in your head, that you kind of know which way you need to be going.
Yeah. I guess that's true.
All right, James D. Montgomery, thank you so much for coming. I'm going to have you to come back. I certainly appreciate you coming on, talking with us, and sharing your point of view.
All right, thank you very much for calling.
I am still riveted. This is going to shock you, at the speech that you gave at the Urban League when you were one of the recipients of the Urban League. This was back in 2010 or somewhere around there. I can't remember the year, but I am still riveted by your speech.
Who was the head of the Urban League at that time?
I don't remember the name of the person who was the head of the Urban League at that time.
What was the lady now? But anyway, I was impressed with her. She even started telling a bit of truth when she got up to the mic. Okay.
All right, thank you so much. We certainly appreciate it. Bye-bye.
All
All right.
Okay, so
our guest might be coming on at 8:05. We'll see.
is that what you're hearing, or are you hoping?
Yeah, I just got a text from the PR person, so we'll see if in fact they are going to come on. Genuinely feels horrible. He can do either a slot Monday, next Monday. Okay, well, we'll have to put him on at another time.
Yeah.
So he left the office, said that he feels bad. So Reed Rasner, I guess he got his time a little bit confused, so we'll try to schedule him for another program. I will be traveling this the middle of the week throughout the 4th of July holidays. I'll be back on Monday, but I certainly would want for you to be with me. So we'll schedule him for another time that we on Monroe Monday.
Yeah, because I'll be traveling too. So we got a holiday coming up. But this will be good. We'll be ready for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Mark. So it was good being with you. And
all right, appreciate it, Monroe. We'll see you next time. Enjoy your holiday. Where are you going for the holiday?
Rochester, New York.
All right.
My oldest friends a friend lives there.
Okay.
So I'm going to go spend the holiday with him and he and his brother were my oldest friends since 6.
Oh my
I
goodness. Okay.
right. I
All
haven't
right.
seen 40 years or so.
Yeah.
So I look forward to it.
All right.
Right?
Okay.
All right.
All right, Monroe, have a good holiday. Certainly appreciate it.
All right. Okay, Mark. You take care now. Okay.
All right. Take care. All right, folks. All right. Monroe Anderson for Monroe Monday. Unfortunately, we had a problem with getting him on board. Let's see. I am going to try to see if we can reschedule Reed Grasner to come in another couple of weeks. He is, of course, the billionaire investor who is trying to purchase TikTok, and he's a Republican. But we talk to everybody, Republicans and Democrats. I am a Democrat through and through. I want for the Democrats to stand up, and I want for the Democratic Party to become the party that we can really have faith in it and fight with the strength that the Democrats used to have to fight with, and stop supporting these corporatist ideas. The problem I have right now here on a local level with Brandon Johnson, who I supported for mayor, and I'm not sure that I would be supporting him again for mayor. Now, I say that with an asterisk because I don't know who the alternative is going to be. If the alternative is going to be worse than Brandon Johnson is, then I will be in a position that I have to support what is not worse. I won't do what many people did in our national election and thought that what we have right now is better because for whatever reason they don't read and they don't understand government, and so they just didn't like Kamala Harris. Or you have 39% of Hispanic men who said that a woman should not be running anything, and that if Joe Biden was the nominee, that they would have voted for Joe Biden. But this, they say, is better than that. So my point is the Democrats have to get their, they got to get their house in order. They have to find their true footing, and they have to stand on it. And it's not going to be enough to just call a person who has the mental decline of a 12-year-old. That is not where representation is going to be communicated to the people that they need to reach. I think that this was not so much as Republicans winning as more of Democrats losing. And because Democrats are out of touch. They're out of touch with the average working class or poor person in this community. They don't even want to talk about the poor. I think that it's ridiculous that they are afraid to talk about the poor when they represent a significant voter bloc in this country. In several of the southern states, they represent almost 40% of the registered electorate. And yet nobody is talking to the poor or talking about the issues that impact the poor. But I want to come back home here in Chicago and talk about what we're talking about. And I know that there are people who are really interested in reparations and supportive of reparations. I'm in support of reparations too, but I'm not in support of a tagline. I'm not in support of a tagline of the name reparations, and there's no substance behind it, because reparations is repairing a breach, repairing the damage of an educational system that has failed our communities for decades. That's reparations. Reparations is making sure that people in our community, that there are equitable investments in the billions of dollars and attracting industries that come back into our communities and employing our people in our communities, hiring them in record numbers, earning the $98,000 a year at starting salaries, that they can work on a career for 30 years and retire, that people are earning 70% of all employment in the Black community in the 50s, 60s, and 70s was in labor. Getting those industries to move back to our communities, coming up with the types of partnerships that would encourage them to come to our communities and bring their industries to our communities, giving them the tax breaks so that they can hire the people in our communities, so that it becomes a win-win-win situation. That is another part. There's another layer of reparations. Reparations is preparing a broken down housing a plan that they're talking about, building housing. Building housing, yes, you have to build new housing, but you have to also have affordable housing. We have thousands of buildings that are dilapidated buildings, that are vacant buildings, that owners have, that don't have the resources or even have the wherewithal to get the resources to renovate those buildings back to where they need to be, so that we can turn those buildings into housing for homeless people, into affordable housing for people who don't earn lots of money, but that we can put them into subsidized housing that makes it profitable. For instance, you can take a building that's a 27-unit building here in Chicago. There are hundreds of them on the south and west sides of Chicago, of owners who have those buildings, but they don't have the wherewithal to renovate those buildings at the levels that is required. It costs almost $75,000 to $80,000 a door minimum to renovate an apartment. $75,000 to $80,000 a door minimum. So between $75,000 and $100,000 a door is what it really takes to have to put an apartment back together, that it is in superior condition to house a family. That's what you're going to spend. I'm doing a little 2-unit building, and that building is costing upwards of $275,000 to do. You can take a building and put $100,000 a door, $75,000 to $100,000 a door. And what you can do is you can take the owners of those properties. They maintain the ownership of their property, but we subsidize those properties. Where do we get the money from? The financial transaction tax that Brandon Johnson said that he was going to fight for. Brandon Johnson capitulated to the governor because the governor said, I'm not going to support it. Well, if Brandon Johnson had come to the community, if he had gone to the people and had said to the people, look, we can generate hundreds of millions of dollars on just certain trades, where we're getting a half a cent on certain trades, we can generate more than $300 million a year, that we can use those dollars to get the types of bonds so that we can take and put billions of dollars of investments into these communities. Now you have a partnership where you have an owner who doesn't have the wherewithal of their property. They don't have to sell their property. And we now have the resources that we can put. So we can put those resources in and then partner with that owner over a period of years, 15 years or so, just like they do other tax credit deals, a 15-year period where there is a partnership between the city and that owner. That owner still maintains his property, and there's a management company that is managing it. And after 15 years, the owner has full control of that property and we're providing housing. You can do that all over the city of Chicago, wherever we have a dilapidated building, dilapidated property, and we can put them together for a lot less than what they spent $375,000 a unit putting back together the name escapes me, the building down on 47th Street, the Oakenwall, putting it back together, which I'm glad they put it back together, but it should not have cost $375,000 a door to put that back. Somebody got really rich on putting that building back together, but we can do that on a smaller scale in all of our neighborhoods where we don't have to have any type of homelessness here. But what did Brandon Johnson do? He capitulated and went and fell in line just like his corporative predecessor. That's why he is unpopular. That's why he is having a problem. And I don't need for Brandon to stand up to another podium and to remind me that he is a black man. We all know that he is black. So we don't need him to do that. I need for Brandon Johnson to develop a backbone and to stand on his word and do what he said he was going to do. You will get the support from the people if you go to the people and say to the people, I am not going to give up on what I committed to do, but I need for your support in order to do it. How do you get the community's support to do that? This is how you get the community support. You're going to put a financial transaction check on trade. We get no taxes on trade, on billions of trade and billions of dollars in trade in this city. And if we are not going to get revenue on trade, and you're going to fall for this threat that they are going to move somewhere else, it is baloney. And if they move, bye. We're not getting anything from them in the first place. Where are they going to go? To Kansas City? Where are they going to go? To Iowa? They're not going there because they have to be into proximity where they can compete in terms of speed to be able to have trade. You're not going to get that in rural areas. You're not going to get that in Iowa. You're not going to get that in Lincoln, Nebraska, or Boise, Idaho. That's not happening. So they're not going anywhere. So what Brandon Johnson should have done is he should have gone to the community and say, I need your support. I need for you to put pressure on the governor that we need this revenue in order for us to tackle this housing problem and to tackle this real estate tax issue that we have. These are issues that he could get support from the community. How do you get it? You go to the community and the community says they're going to support it. If you are fighting for them and the community says to the governor, the voters say to the governor, this is something we want you to support. If you do not support that, if you don't support this initiative, we will not be supporting your reelection in the next election. The governor cannot win without the support of the city of Chicago and the black community. You cannot win a citywide, countywide, or statewide office without getting the majority of the black registered voters. In Cook County, we have more than 1.7 million registered black voters and more than 150 or 60,000 that are eligible to be registered because they have aged in and they have They have graduated out, plus the fact that we have had the lower threshold that people can register to vote, as long as they are 18 by the time of the election. So we have an enormous pool of voters to pull from. This is why it is important that we build a block so that we can hold to account people like Brandon or Governor Pritzker or whoever, Tony Prettwinkle, aldermen, commissioners, to hold them to account to deliver what it is that we want. We don't have to go and hold an office in order for us to have impact on public policy. What we have to do as voters is we have to pool our resources together if we really want to make change, rather than bloviating over social media and over TikTok and text messages and all of that nonsense, opinionating about this, that, or the other, and you have no power to move any type of legislation. None of that is a recipe for winning for our communities. And here in Chicago and here in the county of Cook, we have the opportunity. In this region where we are, this is not typical of most Black communities around the country to have the numbers that we have in a major metropolitan region that we are in, to be able to impact elections and impact elections. As impacting elections, we will be able to influence public policy. That is what the power of the vote is. The power of the vote is being able to move the people who we put into public office and strengthening them to be able to move the kind of legislation forward that we need to have to bring the resources to our communities. We don't have that because we have people who are controlled by a preferential few, and they legislate to those people and they coddle you and I back here in the community. They'll come to the community and have these pop-ups that they put up on TikTok or Facebook, like they're giving away a few bags or a few trinkets. Meanwhile, they're giving away the real bags when they're in the legislative sessions for the preferential few that is padding their re-election campaign. And so they manipulate just enough people to get them reelected, to go back to their offices, to legislate on behalf of somebody other than the people who have voted for them. Until we change, nothing will change for our communities. Until we, the voters, change, nothing is going to change for our communities. Not in any real impactful. We will still have them legislating on one hand and then somehow pacifying us on another hand. Brandon Johnson cannot talk about he is in favor of reparations when on one hand he is raping communities, supporting a policy called red light cameras and speed cameras that take away from the south and west sides of Chicago at 3 times the rate that it takes away from the north side. That was a report and analysis that was done 3 years ago by ProPublica when they did this in-depth analysis. And now we find that even the speed cameras are issuing 2.5 million tickets that should never have been issued in the first place because their calibrations are off. This is what Brandon Johnson is supporting. So You cannot convince me or anybody in the Black community that you support reparations by stripping hundreds of millions of dollars from people on one hand, and then you're talking about reparations on the other hand. You can't talk about repairing when you're raping at the same time. So you're repairing over here and then you're raping right back over here. You can't do it. And shame on you and I for allowing for this to take place, and we are silent. We are saying nothing, we are doing nothing, because we are lazy about getting active involved. We'll run our mouth in whatever little circles we are in, with our 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people where we are, in the barbershop, in the beauty salon, in the club, wherever. We will have those complaint sessions, but you won't do the powerful thing that you could do of putting ourselves in a situation where we become a massive block of voters. The massive block of voters, without even going to a voting booth, the masses of us can influence the very people who are in public office to address the concerns that we want them to address, to rid ourselves of policies that are antithetical to our communities. There are groups, and we don't know how many or who they are outside of, the main contractors. We don't know who they are. Nikki Zola, and we know who she is in the suburbs, who is getting rich off of red light cameras in the suburbs, a company that's tied to 13 federal charges and convictions, still doing business with our municipalities. In the city of Chicago, Xerox, which is the primary company, and American Traffic Solutions, now Vera Mobility, that has the contract, and then the subs or the minority participators, we don't know who they are. We have been trying to get those contracts so that we can expose who it is that's getting rich off of raping our communities, trying to sell to our communities that these devices provide safety when in fact they don't provide any safety. The analysis have already shown that where the cameras are, there's a 14% crash rating. Where there were no cameras for the same period of time, there's a 14% crash rating. They're about virtually the same, 1/10 of 1% difference. So there's virtually no difference. But the point is, we must get active. If we do not change, and active is not us operating in our silos. Nobody is saying to you, leave the organization that you belong to or are part of. Let's put them together. Dr. Henry showed us a visual of a spider web connected. And it said that a spider web connected could take on a herd of lions. And a spider web that is disconnected can be compromised. And that's what's happening to us, is because we are disconnected. We are operating like this rather than like this. When you operate like that, you have gaps. But when you operate like this, we are stronger together. That is how we bring about change. You can literally transformationally transform how the people that we have in office, that we've elected to go to office, the 20 state representatives, 22 state representatives, 10 state Congress people, 17 black mayors in the suburbs, a black mayor in the city of Chicago, a black Cook County board president, 20 black aldermen, 6 black Cook County commissioners, and a whole host of other black elected representatives in Illinois, 193. You and I, if we function differently than what we're functioning, because right now we're dysfunctional. I don't care how bright or brilliant you are, or how bright or brilliant any of us are, you are not going to change the conditions with your individualism of brightness and your brilliance. We have to bring those together. Imagine if we brought just 100,000 of us together. Imagine that if we brought 100,000 of us together and we went downtown, or we went anywhere and we had a press conference saying to the mayor, saying to the governor, saying to the Cook County board president, saying to our state reps, saying to our state senators, saying to our Congress people, saying to our alder people, commissioners, and everybody else, there is a new day. We are organizing different. We are going to determine who is going to be in that seat. In effect, we are going to primary you if you do not do what it is that we want. We're going to primary you. That's what is happening with the MAGA folks. Anybody falls out of step and out of line with Trump, they primary them. That means that they have millions of people across this country, thousands in different districts, that are all voting the same way. They're collaborating the same way. And guess what? Those representatives capitulate to their demands regardless of the impact. This bill that is getting ready to pass, that is going to strip all kinds of resources from entitlements for people who need that support. That's happening because Republicans are afraid of the constituents. Because if they go against Trump, the constituents in that base are going to primary them in the next election. And so they are not willing to do the right thing. They are willing to self-preserve themselves. We need to do the same thing. Together, we need to do it. That's why I started 10 by 10 to win, so that we could bring ourselves together, and together we can decide and we can fight. We don't have to hold office. We can control office. We don't have to be elected. I don't have to be elected to an office. Together, we can control the people who are in those offices. That is the strength of organizing, of which we have never, ever done. We've never been organized. Oh, yeah, we've participated in mobilization on one time or the other. That's not organized. That's not having a institutional fabric. That's not being organized. Organized means that you have institutionalized an infrastructure that is in place, that has the power to influence public policy at every level of government, from your local to your city, to your county, to your state, even to your federal. That when you have these people who are in public office afraid of you, because they now know that you are participating at a different level, that we are participating at a different level, that we have amassed the kind of strength that we need to amass by putting together thousands upon thousands of voters that are now together. Imagine if we filled up, not for a concert, but imagine if we filled up as a block the House of Hope, which holds 10,000 people. Imagine if we filled that up. Imagine if we filled up Soldier Field, or not even Soldier Field, but maybe the United Center, as a community of Black voters. It's never been done before. Imagine if we did that. The power that we would have to move any piece of public policy, reparations forward. And again, for me, reparation is the policies that impacts the breach. The policies that impacts the breach. To repair the damage means that you have to have policies in place, and there has to be billions of dollars that are invested in these policies to make sure that they produce a better outcome than the negative outcomes that were produced by the billions of dollars of disinvestment in our communities. It is about the resources. It is about the money. You have to have money to fund education. You have to have money to fund housing. You have to have money to fund the mental health crisis. You have to have money to fund looking for missing Black children and Black women. You have to have resources invested in order that you're going to employ the 47% of unemployed Black males between the ages of 18 and 25 that are out of work and out of school. It is always, whenever there is legislation being talked about, at the very backdrop of that is money. The very foundation of it is money. While they're talking about the bills and the merit of the bill, it is about money. And it's either money that is coming out of our community and very little coming back to our community. Very little. You had Mayor Lightfoot, who was talking about Southwest Invest. Sounds good, no substance. Because what good does it do to build a bunch of beautiful commercial buildings with retail space in those buildings when you have a produced situation of poverty and high unemployment? You have some beautiful buildings. I see them now, up and down 79th Street, on the west side. Guess what? All of the commercial the commercial spaces are vacant. You know why they're vacant? Is because you have such high rates of unemployment and low rates of people who are employed that small businesses would never survive having to go and pay the rent, because there is not a large enough customer base. That is what this is. You can sit and you can talk through your green about we have to make sure that we have business and we're building business. I want somebody to help me to understand how you are going to build business, how you are going to establish business when you have high rates of people who are unemployed in the black community. When you have 47% of unemployed black males between the ages of 18 to 25, that's very significant. You are not going to have this egalitarian, welcoming, safe community when you have high rates of poverty and poor conditions that have been produced. You know what else is inextricably tied to that is violence and the negative, conduct. Because every person breathing is going to find a way to feed themselves and to support themselves. And in a lot of cases, supporting themselves means that they have taken on some high risk activity, which either they're stealing from somebody else or causing themselves to get apprehended by the law, or they get shot. So let me just say that we're not going anywhere. We are not going anywhere, not at the levels that we could. Not at the levels that we could. I am not trying to sell fear, because this is not fear. I'm not a fearful person. I don't fear or worry about anything. I worship the God that I believe in, but I don't fear, and I'm not selling fear. I'm simply saying to us, this is the reality, that this idea of reparations is powerful. It is absolutely needed and necessary, but it is not happening at the level that it ought to happen in, because we are not putting ourselves in the position to apply that kind of pressure to set forth policy. Like ALEC, which is the American Legislative Exchange Committee. It's a conservative Republican think tank. They bring millions of people together all around the country. And they impact legislation. In fact, they make the legislators come to their ALEC meeting, and they already have the legislation drawn, and they give the legislation to the representative and explain to the representative what the legislation is, and sends the representative back to their particular legislative district and say to them, pass this bill. And guess what happens? They pass the bill. That's all I'm saying, is that we have to develop a sense of strength. A united effort that we have to do that. If, and the word is if you want change, then that's what we have to do. So, if you want to, we're not meeting this week. I'm going to put the number here. If you want to get involved, if you really want to make things happen for our communities, if you really want to see change take place, if you really want to see that happen, then you've got to get involved. We all have to get involved. We all have to come together. And then you've got to get the people who you know that trust you to just be a part. You know, it's so simple that you simply just cannot miss the point. The simplicity is bringing ourselves together in such large numbers, cohesive numbers, that we can say to Brandon Johnson, we can say to an alderperson, to a commissioner, to a state rep, a state legislator, that this is what we are demanding. These are the things that we're demanding. Not about what you believe or don't believe as the representative. That's not important. What's important is that you support what we believe. That power is available to us. That strength is available to us. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist, or you don't have to be a political scientist to be able to make impact. Yes, we can make serious impact. Now, I saw some clips, and I'm going to play them. I saw some clips of what, and this one in particular, that all these people who wanted to vilify Joe Biden and was skirmishing and talking about, I was embarrassed that we need a new candidate, and we need this and we need that and the other. All of that negativity, because Joe Biden had a bad performance at a campaign, and Joe Biden is 80 years old. And he would never be able to serve out a second term. Okay, so what? That's why you have a vice president. If the president is not able to serve, you got a vice president to continue running the country. Now, when I saw this, and I'm going to play it a couple of times because, I'm just still flabbergasted at how the Democratic Party fell for the okie doke and completely fell apart. And this person is supposed to be sharp.
We're going to make a question of cognitive ability. I think we should consider what happened in Alberta, Canada, just this week, where President Trump was at a press conference with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and said the following: "You all know the great PM of the UK, and we just signed a document." President Trump continued, "We just signed it, so we have our trade agreement with the EU. Britain has not been a party to the EU for 5 years, but President Trump made a statement which clearly was wrong." Now I'd like you to see a short video that includes some other examples of cognitive ability.
The people that came in, they're eating the cats. They're eating. I know about magnets is this: give me a glass of water, let me drop it on the magnets. That's the end of the magnet. The kidney has a very special place in the heart. Right, and then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? This is a tough hurricane. One of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water. When you ran out the healthy arms, you ran out of really healthy. They had great arms, but they ran out. It's called sports. It's called baseball in particular. Maduro, Venezuela, it's unbelievable. Well, I don't know about it. I mean, obviously, I'm not involved.
And they talk about Joe Biden, they talked about Joe Biden, he's not all there, his cognitive decline. Let's see. Here's one where the man could not tell you what the Declaration of Independence was in the Oval Office.
Especially with war. Things change with war. It can go from one extreme to the other. War is very bad. There was no reason for this to be a war. There was no reason for Russia, Ukraine. A lot of wars there was no reason for. You look right up there, I don't know, see the Declaration of Independence, and I say, I wonder if the Civil War, it always seemed to me maybe that could have been solved without losing 600,000 plus people. So a lot of, it's very sad to see. It's very sad to see what's happening.
The man said that the Civil War, that we would not have needed the Declaration of Independence. He did not even understand that the Declaration of Independence was signed, penned 85 years before the Civil War. 85 years before the Civil War. This is a person that a whole lot of people thinks that was the better alternative than, forget Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, who had some of the most accomplished transformational legislative wins that will benefit the average person over decades. All of that's being impacted. Some of it is, except for the infrastructure that Republicans like, they're benefiting from. All of this was Joe Biden, Kamala Harris. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris. Greater legislative accomplishments during his tenure, his 4-year tenure, than Barack Obama had. Barack Obama had some great accomplishments. Managed us out of a terrible economic crisis. Now you can say what you want to say about some of the military conflicts and decisions, but in terms of an economy making some great strides in our economy and putting some policies in place that benefited poor people and cut child poverty in half, put $16 billion, $16.5 billion in investment into historically black colleges and universities. Those are the legislative wins that this so-called person of mental decline was able to get through Congress with both Republicans and Democrats. Now, of course, they had the reconciliation bill, which is a good bill that included resources for communities and, again, average working people and the poor. These are the kinds of accomplishments that we need to have going forth. And you can't have them without having a large sector of people that are organized together. You just cannot do it. All right, so I was having a conversation with some people. Look at this. The Trump big betrayal of a bill is going to cut $930 billion in Medicaid. $930 billion in Medicaid. I can't think of the name of the congressman that was on Face the Nation this past weekend. And when he was asked a question about, are you supporting cutting Medicaid, Medicare, this sort of, he said, I am not voting against something. What I am voting for is I'm voting for the largest tax cut in history. I'm voting for this or that or the other, which had nothing to do with helping people, the average person, nothing. It was all corporatist driven. That's what he said he was voting for. But he said, that's what I'm voting for. But what he really was saying is, well, I'm voting for it, but I am voting against people who need SNAP. I'm voting against people who did. It is more important for me to support these corporatist things than to be worried about somebody who needs some food to eat, or to be worried about somebody who needs their medication. No, I am going to vote for the wealthiest of the wealthy to get a $387,000 tax cut every year. $387,000 tax cut, which they don't need, or it's not going to change their life one bit. For them to pay $50,000 in tax, it's not going to change their life, not one iota, when they are billions and billions and billions wealthy. Not going to change their life at all. But the person who needs the Medicaid, who needs the SNAP benefits, who needs the Medicare, their lives will be forever impacted. They could literally die. They could literally die. Now, it's beyond me, beyond my comprehension, why anybody from the Black community would be supporting Donald Trump. Those people who were talking about reparations, I wonder how that is working out for them. Wonder if you can have a conversation with your president and see if your president would lobby his congressional sycophants to pass a reparations bill. I just wonder if in fact they would do that. Let me know. Call me. Let me know when that meeting is going to take place, so that I'll know the meeting that you're going to be meeting with Trump. Can you do that? What happened there? Oh, can you do that? Something went silent. Let me know what that is. Of the meeting that you'll have on reparations. Let me know when you're going to have that meeting with Donald Trump. All right, listen, I want to thank my guest, Attorney James E. Montgomery. Certainly thank you, Monroe Anderson, for being on for this week's edition of Monroe Monday. We'll be back in 2 weeks with Monroe Anderson, and we will see you next week for another edition of The People Show. We're going to be bringing you continued great guests. We have a new producer who is helping us to bring you great guests to talk about the issues that are important to you. But more importantly, I want to say to you, please organize. Let's organize ourselves together and show ourselves the power that we have to influence public policy. Thank you all so much. Have a good night. We'll see you next week. Have a great holiday weekend and be safe.